that you're in history class and you actually get up to World War II and you notice that your professor isn't talking about the Holocaust. So you think that's kind of weird, so you ask about it, and your professor says, well, the governor in this state is a Holocaust denier, and he's made a law that if we talk about the Holocaust, we also have to talk about all the facts that the Holocaust deniers believe. So clearly you can't just shove your own interpretation of history into a class. But the same thing is happening in science classes across America, where politicians are trying to shove out evolution and teach a Judeo-Christian creation story. This is one of my dad's favorite topics, so I hear a lot about it. It's a really sensitive issue in America right now. We started with just the Jesus fish bumper sticker, and then evolutionists came up with the Darwin bumper sticker. Christians thought that was pretty offensive, so they came up with Jesus eating Darwin. And there's a lot more offensive ones on the internet if you would like to look that up on your own time. This affects our education. James Owen wrote a 2006 article for the National Geographic that said that many United States adults don't know basic biology concepts. This is correlated with the fact that 33% of United States adults don't believe in do believe in evolution, compared to 80% of European adults. So clearly by teaching the wrong thing in biology class, we're affecting our international science. I'm going to refute some creationist arguments to show that evolution, not creationism, belongs in public school science classes. So first, creationists appeal to science. They say that evolution is just a theory, kind of like gravity is also just a theory. But Eugenie Scott wrote in her 2005 book, Evolution versus Creationism, that evolution is a fact. Things do change. That's a problem to the really extreme creationists who believe that everything on Earth is exactly how God made it and nothing has ever changed. The theory of evolution upsets even more creationists. Now, civilian theory is just a guess, but Eugenie Scott writes that a scientific theory is a logical construct of facts, hypotheses, and laws that explain natural phenomena. A scientific theory has to be falsifiable and come from natural origins. For a while in America, we had equal time laws where you could teach evolution, but you also had to teach creationism. That was ruled unconstitutional in the 1987 court case Edwards versus Aguilar, but they did say that you can have a scientific critique of a scientific theory. So creationists tried to make creationism sound a little more scientific by taking out the word God. They put in intelligent designer, but that's still not science because it's not natural. Dennis Overby wrote a 2005 article for the New York Times that talked about how Kansas politicians are actually trying to redefine science to include supernatural origins. That would mean that there's no moving forward in biological research because at any time the researcher could stop and say, this is how the creator made it, I'm done. Lenny Flank wrote in his 1995 Debunking Creationism website that even if you could make creationism scientific, it still wouldn't be taught as an alternative to evolution because evolution doesn't talk about the creation of the world. Creationists say that they have a lot of scientific support, but they've never had anything published in a peer-reviewed scientific journal. Michael Hopkins wrote on his 2003 website exploring the creation and evolution controversy about the Steve Project. The Discover Institute, which supports intelligent design, wanted to prove that there are scientists that believe in creationism over evolution, so they compiled a list of 103 scientists that are skeptical of evolution. However, very few of these scientists were biologists, and none of them had anything to do with evolution research. So the National Center for Science Education compiled a list, mostly of biologists, who do believe in evolution. They only published the names that were some derivative of Steve, like Stephanie or Stephen, which they estimate is 1% of scientists. They still had 367 names, so even if there's a disproportionate amount of scientists named Steve, that's still more than 3 times the amount that don't believe in evolution. After they exhaust their science routes, they turn to a religious appeal and say that teaching only evolution is anti-religious. Eugenie Scott wrote in her Evolution versus Creationism book about the 1982 court case, McLean versus Arkansas. In that case, clergymen sued to keep creationism out of science class because it's not science. And if clergymen think that that's not anti-religious, we should probably listen to them. Lenny Flank wrote on his Debunking Creationism website that creationists have very strict guidelines for what would be included in a creation story. It has to talk about the Great Flood, so no Eastern religions would be included, and they probably would see that as anti-religious. And the biggest argument against including creationism from a religious standpoint comes from Craig Nelson's 2005 article, Design Isn't Science. He points out that if we're going to teach critiques of evolution, we would also have to teach critiques of creationism, and teachers would feel like they were directly attacking their students' beliefs. Many evolutionists do believe in creation, and they're okay with creation stories in religion class. So I've shown why most of the creationist arguments don't hold water. Now, you can refute people that are attacking evolution and say that it's just a theory. But you can also show that creation stories have their place. If your state tries to put an evolution is just a theory sticker on their biology textbooks, please write your congressperson. And remember, religion and science can coexist, like this bumper sticker.